I think life is a journey of ongoing healing and recovery and restoration, and it's beautiful work. It's resilient work. We would be the most shallow, superficial, boring people if hard things didn't happen. And even though I hate that hard things happen, I love the depth that I've gained and the connections that I can form now with people because I see them differently. They see me differently. Like, we've walked through some deep valleys, even if it wasn't at the same time. So I think there's a grace there that it doesn't come all at once, and our brains won't let it.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Michael Yerby on the Zenroku Podcast Network. I am here with a trauma certified story coach. Her name is Marcy. She is one of a kind. Her message is full of intensity. The things that she's been through, her clinical degrees, professional expertise is something that we need today, especially in the world. And as we deal with mental health and trauma, I am so happy that a lot of people, especially in different communities, have been speaking up on the mental health epidemic that we're having, especially with the trauma that we have. And she's going to speak on a lot of great things that we have been through in our lives, and then also provide a lot of great insight. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marcy.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's get right into it. Marcy, who are you?
Well, I was born in, no, just kidding. Who am I? Wow, that's a great starting question. There's so many possibilities. You said some of it, which is great. I think the gist of the answer would be that I am really just an everyday kind of normal person. I have had to navigate mental health diagnoses like complex PTSD and panic disorders. I've experienced domestic violence, murder in the family. I've raised foster and adopted kids, like just so much life. Mm-hmm. But then the flashy things you just said, right? Like I run a business that is so much fun. It's my passion. I get to help people write their stories and tell their stories. I've done so much work in the field of trauma and resilience because I've needed it. Like I needed it. And now I share what has been so helpful to me. I have done 2 TEDx talks. I've published 20 books, 22, whatever. Like,
go girl.
I know, but I start with the human part first because I think it's so easy for people to hear the achievements and then say, oh, you must be some special level kind of person. Like, no, I'm just a survivor who has a way of processing my survival and my recovery through writing and through helping other people. So that is the gist maybe of who Marcy is.
Okay. And one thing you mentioned that I love, I would like to talk about more. You said you're an author of 22 books. You know, I don't think of you just as a writer or author. What do you think, and what have you done to help people tell their stories that actually help them in healing?
Yeah. I mean, you got to watch out because I do nerd out on this. And so
yeah, go ahead.
Rein me back. But yes, one part of my life is that my degrees, my education are all in therapy. I'm certified in trauma and resilience. I have a private practice, virtual therapy. But then I do all this work with writers. And so for a long time, I couldn't see how to blend those audiences. I felt kind of tug of war between them. But the more work I did in understanding trauma and resilience and recovery and even post-traumatic growth, the more I saw how connected it was to a part of our brain that does a lot of healing work when we write. And not just when we write, but any kind of somatic, even playful, imaginative, artistic work. So painters and musicians and dancers, like there's so many ways that we can listen to that part of our brain, but we're just not trained to listen to that. So, I came to see how the act of writing accesses our brainstem in such a way that things that are kind of stuck and unprocessed there get to be heard uniquely and come out in our storytelling. And it doesn't matter if we're writing for children, for adults, fiction, nonfiction. Anytime we're creatively writing, we're listening to a part of our brain that we don't listen to very often, but we don't realize that. So the fun part of my work with authors is that they think they're coming to write and publish a book for whatever reasons they think. And then they get into it and their nervous system activates because they're tapping into this part of their brain, but they don't recognize any of that. No one's taught anyone that I've heard outside of my conversations that that's what happens. And so they'll just think, oh, I have writer's block. Oh, I'm an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm not meant to do this, or other things like just other avoidance strategies. I'm too busy, whatever it might be. So when I get to help a writer, I get to know what the brain is doing. And I get to say right away, like, that's not writer's block in the traditional sense. Let's see what's activating your nervous system and getting in the way of you telling your story. And so there's a lot more there, but the gist is that when we're processing stories, we're addressing things that have been unprocessed. And so it can be bumpy. It can be rocky. And so sometimes people will interpret that as, I'm not good enough, right? Or whatever it might be. And actually, no, I get to come along with my therapist hat and be like, actually, it just means we're touching something in your brainstem that's really needed attention and hasn't been heard any other way. So like, let's just listen and see what needs to be said and wrestle through that. And that happens in the storytelling, and it's really powerful.
What made you want to do this type of work where, I mean, just it's groundbreaking, really, where you're working with someone and you're getting these recesses in the brain where, honestly, just the way you talk about it, I wouldn't want to talk about stuff like that. Like things I've been through, usually we try to cope with, we're drinking it away. We're not trying to remember it. And what made you want to go and say, I'm going to work with you so you can access these areas of your brain and really heal through the writing process?
Yeah, I think that my own natural inclination to processing my world through writing was the starting point. So having had life doing its lifing, hard things, whether they're traumatic or just hard, and my natural instinct being to journal about it, to write about it. There's a great quote by Flannery O'Connor, who's an author, who says something to the effect of, I write so that when I read what I've written, I understand what I'm thinking. And that so resonated with me because so often I'm just pouring out my thoughts, my emotions, or whatever it is. And it's not until I read what I've written that I go, oh, that's what's going on. And it starts to make some sense for me. So I think I had my own anecdotal experience with it in that way. And then as I began to learn about the different functions of the brain, our survival mechanisms, what brings about healing, how traditional therapy is not that effective for certain populations of people, many of them, that I began to see that connection between, so this is why when I write, I have the feelings I have or the experience I have. I can now see it scientifically. And so because I was doing work in both, it made sense that I could begin to apply that to my authors. And I had coached countless, like I actually don't know how many, if we're in the hundreds or thousands, but I've been coaching authors for a long time. And so I also could see the patterns, right? And recognize, oh, look, consistently fear comes up here, but they call it something else. Well, like, let's dig in a little bit to what that fear is. Is it even rational? Is it not rational? Just to dig at it. But most people, like you said, like, ooh, that's just scary. I don't want to touch. Let's just avoid it. But then, that doesn't actually result in any kind of healing or growth. It actually just postpones and sometimes worsens how it's going to manifest in your life. So wanting to see people heal because I've experienced it, I think is probably the primary reason.
Why is healing so scary, do you think? Especially, we talk about like mental health, right? And people talking about I'm a work in progress or I'm getting the help I need. But really, no one talks about them doing the work so that they can actually not just feel healed, but when they have a conversation, you're like, oh my goodness. Like I tell my wife all the time, and the reason I say this is because a lot of times I have discussions with my wife and she said, man, that person really pissed me off, or this situation really pisses me off. And I said, why don't you just remove the button? And she's like, what do you mean by that? I said, if something is, I guess the quote in our day's culture is, that's triggering me. I said, why don't you just remove the trigger? I said, people can only trigger something that has a button to push. And but it's like, where do you get to that point where healing starts to take effect? Where I guess what I'm trying to ask is, when does that wound starts to scab over and heal?
I think you've asked actually a couple of good questions there. So I'm going to try to remember. I really like the first one because I've never been asked that, to my knowledge. And that is, what makes healing so scary? And then I heard you sort of land on like, when do we start to like actually just heal? So I think as you asked that question, what makes healing so scary? I think there's a few things. One is that so much of healing requires us to relive in some ways that injury through our either telling of it as we speak, through our recalling it as we remember. And our brain can tell the difference between past, present, future, but our body doesn't. So what we think about, our body is experiencing as if it's right now. So when we recall a past injury, our body believes that we're back in that injury. And then our survival mechanism kicks in and is like, don't do that again. That was hard. Stay away. Right. So I think there's an element to healing that we're naturally drawn to, because I do think we're wired to heal. But I think it also then creates a lot of resistance, because the path to healing is remembering. But not just remembering for the sake of it, but remembering in a safe place with a safe person. Right. So that's where therapy or a trusted spouse or good friend can be such a supportive element of healing, because so often our injuries were relational. And so the healing also is relational. So to have somebody who can say, you're safe now, whatever you recall, whatever you want to share with me, you're safe. And, or even if I'm just writing, it's me by myself typing and I'm telling my story. That's the work I have to do for myself. I know that I'm remembering something and my body feels it, but I'm sitting at my desk. I feel my feet on the floor. I've got my squishy brain right here, like touch. I've got my water to drink. And so as you show your body, this is a memory, it's not the present. That begins to usher us into a place of healing. But of course we want to avoid that. So I think one reason healing feels scary is that reason, because I'm going to have to remember something I'd rather not remember. It was hard. And then I think the other thing is we don't know how to live healed. So just like a dysfunctional, say, comfort blanket, you know, the little toys that you might keep with you through your whole life because they've made you feel safe and comfortable. But it could be a dysfunctional thing. That thing could be causing harm, but it's comfortable. And I think we see this a lot in abuse, right? Why does somebody leave an abusive relationship just to enter a new one? Because that personality, that behavior has become familiar. And we really like familiarity. There's a kind of comfort in it, even if it's causing us harm. So I think too, there's like a practice and an adjustment to living healed that can feel so out of our box and so unfamiliar. And then if the people around us aren't working also to kind of level up their own healing, now we're changing the status quo. And so they're either going to try to put us back so we keep it all level, right? And now we're facing like relational community repercussions, or we're inspiring people to level up with us and you get this really beautiful thing. So there's so many deep reasons for why healing might be scary that we don't consciously think about. We just react to, right? Yeah. So question one, I'll pause there. Does anything come up for you there? I heard a lot of nodding and
No, you give a lot to think about. Like a lot truly to think about. Like how, with your experience, how do you do this without feeling overwhelmed with all the stuff with your clinical psychology and just knowing how the brain works? How do you not feel overwhelmed? Like, okay, today I'm trying not to think, okay, I'm not going to do this because this it could lead to this and this right here, and not, I guess, diagnose yourself consistently.
Well, I try not to diagnose. Actually, my abnormal psych teacher in college was like, hey, you're going to read this book on all of the abnormal psychology. You'll see yourself in every chapter. Do not diagnose yourself.
Oh my goodness.
And you know what? I was so glad he said that, because I did. I was like, oh, maybe I have this. Oh, maybe I have that. Yeah, I think that actually ties into the question you'd asked before too. Like, when does that scab begin to form? And And how do you like keep doing this? And I think that ties in also to the fear. Oh my gosh, if I open that door, I'm going to drown in a flood of everything that's behind that door, right? So maybe that's even another answer to like, why is healing scary? Because if I open that door, I don't know what tsunami is behind it that's going to knock me down. So I think the answer that might tie those together is a kind of desperation for something to change. Right? Like that gets me to a place of being willing to do uncomfortable things, to chase down solutions, to do the work that I'm capable of doing. Now, in my case, medication at seasons of time has taken the edge off enough of the overwhelming or the dysregulation to allow me to begin to learn skills and retain those skills. Right. So I think that might be an important piece sometimes. Is like you're so activated. Nothing I say is going to help you because you can't even come down long enough to acquire a new skill and apply it. So I think that how do I at this point avoid the overwhelm? One, I'm a practicing Christian. Maybe that's a funny question, but I have a belief and a faith in God, and that has given me a lot of peace and like something outside of me that I can trust for safety, for anchoring in life. Like there's truths there that feel external that I can hang on to. That's been really supportive for me. And if I start to feel overwhelmed, I feel like I have somewhere to go. There's a lot of I mean, what good theology. There's a lot of like verses that talk about like how God is our comfort. He's our rest, that we can trade things. We can give him our hard things and get an easier thing instead. And so I get to lean into that as a person of faith, which is so helpful. And then part of my other experience there is that it ends up not being a tsunami and more of an onion onion. I mean, so where it's really like, I feel like God just like pulls back one layer at a time and I just have to manage that layer. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm healed. And then we come to the next layer.
Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah.
Oh shoot. And so I'm never healed. I think life is a journey of ongoing healing and recovery and restoration. And it's beautiful work. It's resilient work. We would be the most shallow, superficial, boring people if hard things didn't happen. And even though I hate that hard things happen, I love the depth that I've gained and the connections that I can form now with people because I see them differently. They see me differently. Like we've walked through some deep valleys, even if it wasn't at the same time. So I think there's a grace there that it doesn't come all at once and our brains won't let it. Like I talked about that from a faith perspective, but even like kind of neurologically, we can only handle so much. So our brain is kind of wired to also just release bits. That's why you get people who don't even remember whole sections of their childhood or sections of life. Like the brain has just been too much. I can't deal with that. So let's just not even remember it. Right. And that can become disruptive, but for some people, it's just like, it's okay. I don't need to remember whatever my brain chose to block out.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a grace there for that. And then just being willing to show up for the next thing. So it doesn't have to be the whole mountain of healing. I'm trying to get here from where I am. It can be like, did I get out of bed today? When yesterday that was hard? Yeah. That is a win. Yeah. Right. And allowing whatever the overwhelm feels like in that day to not win. I almost like take that button away. Like, what is the expectation I'm setting for myself that I have to accomplish something that feels overwhelming? What if I just do the next thing that I can do and call that a win? So I know there's multiple answers there to what you're asking, but that's been my journey with how do I do this and not get overwhelmed and not get drowned in a tsunami of traumatic events coming back to me.
Yeah, no, I get you. You know, following your work, I was wondering, like, how do you, like, when you're coaching someone to write through their trauma, right? Is there like a right way and a wrong way of coaching them through writing their trauma out?
Yes. You got good questions.
Oh.
But yeah, like I feel like I get some of the questions on repeat, and I don't know if I cut you off with my excitement. Was there more?
No, you didn't. Not at all.
I think I wasn't anticipating you going where you went. Like, is there a right or wrong way to coach people through writing their trauma? Yes. Yeah. And I'm going to have to verbally process that with you a little bit. I don't think everyone should help writers through writing their trauma because not everyone is equipped to do that. We don't know. I don't know what's stuck in everybody's brain stems. I'm just there for the ride to see what comes up as they experience it. So what if something were to come up for someone who hasn't had that training or experience? And now what are you going to do? And I think you touch on something in the world of coaching that's important, is that you have a lot of people, self-identified coaches, claiming to coach through mental health things without the training. And it's dangerous. It's harmful. It can be harmful. And so the lines have blurred between what people call coaching and what people call therapy. As a therapist and as a coach, I also have to be aware of when I'm doing which one and who that client is, right? So even though I am able to do therapy, it doesn't mean that that person hired me to be their therapist. They hired me to be their writing coach. So I can sometimes bring skills that I have, training I have to help them understand what's going on, but I'm not going to turn their writing experience into a deep dive therapy session, right? Yeah. I am going to help them set up supports in their writing so where if they're getting to a section of their story that is really triggering them, activating their nervous system, then I might talk through with them ways to set up supports for themselves. What are the expectations? Are they going to try to force themselves through it? I hope not. But it might be like, hey, I'm going to try working on this today and I'm going to take a bubble bath afterwards. Or I'm going to have my best friend call me at this particular time to check in on me. Or I'm not going to schedule anything in the rest of my day because I'll be exhausted. So I think that there are things that are important to know about somebody who might, because we don't even know when it'll happen per se, be in a part of their story that's starting to activate something. And I think poor coaching there could be exposure therapy. Just sit down at the desk and push your way through it. I don't think that's helpful. I think that would be a bad way to coach someone through writing their traumatic story. There's probably other things that could come to mind, but I think there's a kind of not just intuition, but skill that comes with knowing how and when to gently push somebody, but also to recognize their limit. I'm not trying to send anybody into a panic attack, right? Like, I want them to ease into it and to be so aware of their own body and their mind and their spirit as they're doing this and keep checking in with them. So yeah, I think there's definitely unhelpful ways to coach somebody through writing traumatic stories. And then I'm calling out coaches who do that kind of work without the actual training.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, the reason I think one reason I have all these questions is because me and my subordinate I think it was last week or the week before last, we was talking and we was talking about who our favorite writers are, right? And we was saying, he was saying how Stephen King is by none his favorite writer. And he was like, man, the stuff he writes about, I know he has a lot of trauma, all the stuff he goes through, right? He's like, and I said, yeah. I said, it's funny. It's like, how do you channel all that, right, into writing and not go crazy? And do you want to keep, I guess, a level of insanity going so you can write through all those plot points, right? Because, like some of the stuff he writes, I'm like, where did this come from? Like, geez, like, where did all this stuff come from? And we were just talking about different books he wrote, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I don't know." Yeah, I said, man, I said, what would a healthy Stephen King look like? And he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, probably somebody I wouldn't want to read. I was like, geez,
maybe not.
So and we had a little joke about that. So yeah. So that's why I have a lot of questions because, of course, we had a good, intense conversation about that stuff.
I love it. I mean, I think fiction writing is a playground. And again, most authors don't realize how much they're tapping into their brainstem, which is, again, where traumatic events that didn't get to process all the way through are still stuck. Usually when we go through an experience, our brain will then file that experience away somewhere in our brain, and probably multiple places, right? Like long-term memory, short-term memory, but it's in the past. It's assigned to a time and a place, and it's in the past. But when we experience something and our fight, flight, freeze, fawn system didn't feel like it conquered the obstacle. Then that remains unprocessed. So what we call trauma is really unprocessed trauma. It's an unprocessed, it didn't get through the whole function and it's stuck there. And so then what happens is certain triggers, certain patterns or smells or a time of year or a word or whatever it might be will immediately take you back to that very incident as if it's happening right now. I mean, you've got so much connection to the military, right? Like so much. You know PTSD well, and how somebody who's experiencing that, the common metaphor we have is like a car backfires and they are immediately like in their mind, body, soul, spirit back on the field with grenades going off, right? Or whatever it might be. Like that's kind of our quickest association to understanding. In the mind of that person, they are there. Like that sound took them back. So for all of us, we have varying degrees of that in our brainstem. It's just that the car backfiring doesn't have the same association that it does for a veteran, right? For me, it might be the leaves turning around fall. Maybe that was a time of year that something happened. So we've all got this going on. So when I come back to fiction as a playground, when we're just freely writing kind of that uncensored, like I'm creating a story, we are still tapping into that part of our brain. It's one of a few ways that we get to listen to what is going on inside of us. That part of our brain doesn't talk like I'm talking to you. It's very sensory. So, right, you're blinking, you get a twitchy eye, your breathing is real shallow, you keep stumbling or being clumsy. Like all of this is your brainstem communicating something to you, right? Heart rate. It's responsible for your heart rate. So there's cues all the time. We just don't know how to read them. But one of the ways that we can listen is through writing. And so when we're writing fiction, we're not so consciously aware that I'm wrestling with things in that part of my brain. So when your friend says like, dang, Stephen King's been through some things, that's because we can, I love reading for that reason, especially fiction, because I'm always a little bit like, ooh, I see what they're processing. I see what they're wrestling with. This is cool, right? And then it gives us a chance to join that wrestling and that processing with them, because a lot of us are like, yeah, let's talk about life and the hard things in life. And so it ends up being still a very healing practice, but most of them aren't even aware that this is the work they're doing. They're just like, I'm just a fiction writer and I'm putting out work. When we're writing nonfiction, we're far more aware that we're tapping into our actual true life stories, right? And so you might have somebody like recognize, oh, this is hard because I'm telling a hard story. I had one children's book author, a fiction author for children's book. This was like the third or fourth book in her children's book series. Well written, had written books for adults as well. And she had the biggest bout of writer's block. And she came to me, I was coaching her, and was just like, I'm totally stuck. I have no idea what to do. And as I talked with her, we realized that her character, her dog in this story, was going through a bullying situation. And she was getting really stuck on how to write that part out. Well, as we talked, she had been bullied as a kid. And in her like deep conscience, she could not put her beloved character through the same really painful experience that she had had as a kid. So she thinks it's writer's block, but really she's being confronted with her own childhood bullying, and her body would not let her put her character through that same thing. So I ended up having her write a letter to that character just saying, hey, I am for you. Just for a minute, you're going to go through this experience, but you're going to come out stronger, and I'm with you the whole time. You're never going to actually be alone. And we are teaching kids how to handle bullying. I've been bullied. I'm not going to I just had her write a whole letter, right? And she bawled and bawled and bawled and got it out. He then wrote the draft, gave me the best first draft I've ever read, completely unlocked her, and she was able to put this book out. But she had no idea that was the connection. And I didn't either until we started talking. But it just felt like, why can't I write this story? I've written so many stories. Why isn't this one coming out? Fiction for children. Yeah. And yet her story was really trying, it was her brainstem really trying to process and work through the bullying she'd experienced as a kid. And she finally had that awareness and did it. So it's incredible work.
Yeah. Wow, man. So I guess I was going to ask, my next question was, and you kind of led into it, I was going to ask,
perfect.
Do professional writers struggle with self-doubt? And you kind of Like, wow.
Yes,
Yeah,
the answer
you
is
answer
yes.
that. Like,
Yeah. It
wow.
doesn't matter. Actually, one of my favorite anecdotes is from Jane Yolen. She's published over 365 books. I don't know how many now, but she's just a prolific writer, classic stories, and incredible. But I remember her one day saying something like, "Hey, today I feel like a real author. Someone asked me to sign something somewhere. I wrote the next section of my next book." And something like just really simple things. And I was like, oh, snap. If Jane Yolen doesn't feel like a real life author every single day of her life, none of us ever will. And that is okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, but that is very unique. Like, I wonder where's the separation? Like, you know how like you like from you believing that you're good at something to you having to get the validation that you are. You know what I mean? Like, you're good at something, you've been doing this, and then somehow you forget you were good at it until someone gives you the validation that you are, and then you go, "Oh yeah, I do this. I actually do this. Oh, okay."
I
It's one of
actually
those things. I wonder,
Yeah.
where does that happen at? Where we forget? Or why would we forget?
Well, because the world is set up, and when I say world, I specifically probably mean Western culture,
Yeah.
Is set up to tear us down all the time to get us to buy services and products. We are constantly, purposefully inundated with messages that we're not enough. And so buy this thing to be enough, right? Like, I can't tell you how many ads I've seen of people doing things to their body that I've never even thought needed anything done. People like rolling things on their faces now. Now I see a mask that keeps a mask, and I'm like, what? This is just what? But it's meant to show me that I'm ugly, and so I need this mask. I need the roller. I need the thing. So why do we forget? Because there's very few voices in our life saying otherwise. The majority of the messaging that is aimed at us is to say, you need something more than what you have, whatever that thing is. So I think that the work of validation has to be internal, which is not my wiring. I want someone to affirm what I hope is true, that I'm a good person, a good mom, a good author, a good somebody. And the world is, there's a deficit in the world of those kinds of voices. So a couple things have to happen. One, we've got to surround ourselves with high quality people who will be able to tell us the truth in love, but also who love us genuinely, they're not in competition with us. They're not trying to keep us down so they can keep feeling down, whatever it might be. Like, we need people around us who will elevate us as we elevate them. And that's where we're going to get some of those voices, and some of that like validation is really from trusted people that we know will tell the truth. And so when they say something wonderful, they're telling the truth. When they say, hey, this could be a growth area, they're telling the truth, and we get to develop, right? But apart from them, I have to know for myself that I have worth and value. I have to know for myself that just because someone else doesn't like my book doesn't mean it's a bad book or that I'm a bad author. It does not. But that's what a lot of people will immediately connect. Oh no, there's a negative review on Amazon. I've been discovered, when there's 500 positive reviews, right? So we have to do that work. The internal grounded validation that I already have because I know I'm good at this. It's hard. It's hard for me. But I'm choosing it. And then surrounding ourselves with people, not just to tell us what we want. That's not what I'm saying. Like, genuinely healthy, committed, wonderful humans. They exist. They're in my life, and they're worth everything, right? And they're safe. But I also finally get to hear something positive about myself because they are not the messaging of the world. So it is a whole thing.
Yeah. So question, what is the regimen you use? And the reason I say this is because I was watching an interview with Mr. Beast. Everybody knows Mr. Beast. And I forgot his name, Daniel. He's the owner and proprietor of the show Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
I forgot his something Barton. If you know his name, say it in the chat. Yeah, but Stephen Barnett. And basically he was talking to Mr. Beast, and Mr. Beast was saying how like he read over 5,000 messages of people telling him to go kill himself, right? And he's like, what will embody somebody to say something like that to me? Like to get online to just say something hateful. They don't know me. They never met me, but to say I should kill myself because this video wasn't up to snuff. So I was wondering, what is your regimen and what can you, I guess, relate to the people where, because you're a book writer. Has anybody come out and say, oh, this book sucks or this like this, or even other, people in your profession be like, oh, she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about today. You know, how do you deal with that? What's your regimen to just...
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, because I had an attempted like Twitter cancel situation. They were trying to cancel me on Twitter. Wow. Just briefly, small group, small mob, but you know, a Twitter mob came after me for totally, like off things to promote their own thing. They were trying to cancel me. And then, I have people on my books all the time leave reviews. Some people get really mad that I'm a Christian, even if I don't make them one. Like I might just mention my faith in a book and someone will come at me like, I didn't know this was a Christian book. I'm like, can I not talk about me? I didn't even tell you to do anything. I'm just like, this has helped me. Yeah. Like I did here. Right. But sometimes that's upsetting to people. So what was really helpful is one of my best friends one day said to me, Marcy, the world is not made up of mirrors. They're windows. Not everything is a mirror. And he was saying this after I said, like, thanks for being a mirror. And he's like, I was not a mirror. Why would you know that thing? Like, I thought I was a bad friend because I didn't know something. And he's like, that's ridiculous. I held up a window. My whole life flashed before my eyes. And every single mirror like flipped and became the window. Can't see my hand. Flipped and became the window. And I could see it all differently. The girl who was like, oh, you've got a big gut, huh? And I was like, oh, I guess I do because I think you're a mirror. Oh, you're whatever, right? Like, oh, I guess I am my abusive ex. Oh, you're a horrible wife and mom and whatever. Oh, I guess I am because you're a mirror. Like everyone, the bad, the sideways look at the grocery store. Oh, that person looked at me a certain way. I must be bad because they're a mirror. Flipped. All of it flipped and they all became windows. And the thing about a window is that you get to look through it and learn something about someone else, right? Yes. Yeah. They're teaching me, they're giving me an opportunity to see something that I couldn't see. It's not me. I'm not seeing me. I'm seeing something about them. And sometimes what I learn about them will impact what I do next, right? So maybe there is something where I'm like, oh, I love you as my friend. And when I look through the window, I see that your worldview is this thing. And because I love you, I'm willing to shift how I interact with you to support you. But that's not because you're reflecting that I'm bad. I'm just seeing who you are and I'm making a choice to love you in this way. Right. But somebody else might come along and be like, your book is bad because I don't like it. And I get to go, well, what is this window showing me? Okay, it's showing me that this person had a different expectation. They're looking for something different. They don't like Christians, whatever it might be, whatever the review is, right? That's not about me. They just came to the wrong book somehow. So sometimes that will actually get me to think, do I need to tweak my book description a little better so it's more clear and I can help people not think this is going to be different than what it is? But again, it's not about my worth or value. They're showing me something about them and then I get to make a decision. So I have taken on that approach in every aspect of life. Sometimes I have to like chant it through a beating heartbeat and deep breathing. It's a window. It's a window. It's a window. I'm not saying it's like, or my daughter will do that. We'll be in the car and she's like, Mom, is that a window or a mirror? Like we've got that language with each other, but it just reminds us like nobody else is touching my worth or value. I think there's very, very few times in life where there's a mirror experience. I do think they can happen, but I think they're going to come through, again, a trusted, healthy person who may not even realize that they're being a mirror. It's never, I'll tell you this though, from somebody who thinks they are a mirror. The person who comes up and they're like, I'm a mirror, look and be different. Nope, window. Every time. Every time. So that has been my regimen, so to speak, for navigating life in a world that has just keyboard warriors and so many things. The other thing that I'll do is if something does come at me and I'm just struggling to know, is it true about me or not? Like, I don't want to dismiss something true that someone might just not be sharing well, but maybe could still be something I could grow from, I will take that and share that with a friend who I know will tell me the truth. So
Gotcha.
I'll just take that and say, hey, is there anything here that I do need to consider from a growth point? And I want to hear it from them. And then I'll decide, what do I need to do? Right. Often they'll come back and like, nope, this is just a jerk. Okay. I wasn't sure. But they might come back and say, you might have said this a little differently. I can see where there was some miscommunication, or I can see where, okay. So that will inform how I might respond and what I can own my part, something to that effect. So windows versus mirrors, and then having trusted friends that will tell me the truth, but who love me, that I can run things by to just have a good gauge when I'm kind of struggling to know it for myself.
No, that's pretty cool. Question: you said with trusted friends.
Mm-hmm.
How do you build trust as a writing coach, where you come in, someone hires you because they think, hey, man, this person is awesome. They come highly recommended, and you come into the play, and how do you build that trust with them for them to actually really, really, truly trust you and listen to what you have to say, exactly how you have to say it, so they can go on that journey and get that self-discovery?
Do you trust me yet?
I will have to build that trust, I guess. Right?
Is that a no? You don't trust me yet?
No, I guess I'm trying to think. I don't have no reason not to trust you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I haven't been placed in a situation where I will have to, in my mind, trust you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
your life.
Yeah.
But what about with you? And I'm asking, like, I don't know what branch you're in.
Oh, in the Air Force.
Okay. So I'm asking, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to call you. So when you're in the Air Force, what are you called?
Airman.
An airman.
Yep.
I told you I'm the daughter of a vet, and I'm like, she's a Marine though, so I'm like,
yeah, okay. She's a daughter of Marine, so it doesn't count.
All jokes. So I'm talking to an airman about trust, right? You have had, like, that does have a very particular meaning for you. Usually trust, I imagine, when it comes up for you, is life or death. Mm-hmm. In telling your story, would you feel comfortable to tell me, I'm not asking you to right now, but would you feel comfortable telling me any, like, a part of your story if I probed a little?
It depends. It depends on what it is. Because not I don't believe everybody gets to know that side of you, because, how I was told this, like, be careful who you tell your story to, because it was something to the effect that they might use it against you to manipulate you, but in this setting, like, can we have this conversation? Or if I come to you looking for help, I would say yes and no, because it'll still be difficult for me to let some things go, especially if you're telling me, like, this thing that I've been holding for so long, I need to actually let it go to get better and be better. I'm not saying that I wouldn't call you crazy, but I'll be like, what is she talking about? So.
Yeah. No, this is so good. And I love that it's you, because you are going to, I'm generalizing you, so feel free to step out of the generalization. But what I understand about military and the understanding of trust, but also of letting go and of who you can trust, is so profound. Like, and of course it is. And then talking about your stories, like my work with veterans, I have to have such a different level of expectation and or patience. Because they may never get to a place where they feel that they can share the things they've seen or done. And they may never feel that with me, because I don't have that experience. And so what I get to be part of is creating experiences with other veterans and letting them go off privately and have their conversations that I don't have to be part of. So sometimes the trust building in this regard is creating a space where someone feels they can do that, and I don't need to be part of it. Now, in writing, if they're hiring me to be a writing coach, that's a little different. And so you didn't totally help my point there, but that's fine. I think it raised a good part of the conversation. You've trusted me to come here, and so far you seem to be believing what I'm saying. And so I think that, and you could say whether this is true or not with your experience so far, but I think what I do to build trust isn't, I'm not intentionally thinking, like, how am I going to build trust with this person? I think that there's a natural desire in me for people to feel safe and connected and accepted.
Yeah.
Always. And so person by person, I'm paying attention to what that looks like for them. They can have a different faith than me or no faith. They can have different political opinions. We can be wildly different. And I'm not going to be fazed by that because I want a need to be accepted and to belong somewhere. And so I want other people to know they can have that with me too. So I think in part because that's who I am, that I have space for us to be different. As I demonstrate that or people experience it with me, they believe it and trust it. And there's an authenticity in a relationship that can develop. Right. And so I think that's why it's important too, when we say, hey, who is Marcy? That I don't just say, oh, Marcy's an author. She's a mom. She's an ex-wife. She's a dibba-dibba-di. And she's been in a lot of counseling. She's on medication. She's got some diagnoses, because I don't want to put up an idea that only certain people can relate to me. No, if you've been through there's a lot of things I can relate to a lot of people. Right. And so I think I would imagine that's what would lead to a point of trust here, even between us, just in the conversation that we've had. But I think that's probably what it is with the people I work. I almost feel like you'd have to ask them, why do you trust her?
No.
And word of mouth. Yeah. I think actually that's probably the biggest thing. The majority of my clients are referrals, or a conversation like this where they got to hear me and they go, oh, that sounds like someone that would get me, that I could vibe with, who could really handle my story. That's a big one. Who can even handle my story? I can. I've lived through so many of my own, but I'm also wired to just not be fazed by the deepest parts of people's stories. And I don't mean phased moved. I can be moved, but I'm not oh no, now I'm triggered. Now, right? I can handle the story. So I think there's something there to borrowing the trust of other people, that if somebody says, hey, I've worked with Marcy and she's great, she's going to be a good fit for you, man, I get their trust right away. Right. Or if they've heard me here and they've spent some time with us, you have brought me here in front of your audience. And they're like, well, if he trusts her, then, well, he's not sure he can yet, you guys, but just teasing.
No, it's inherently when we talk about trust. So sorry for me.
I'm teasing you.
Yeah, because it is weird because me being in the military, I'm a aircraft technician by trade, and so we have this saying that we say as Air Force technicians: trust, but verify. We say that all the time. And that's because a lot of our maintenance that we do is consistent of having a person who is experienced, which we call a 7 level, and a person who's a 5 level, who's just, they're getting the experience, but they're just not as experienced. They don't have the level of responsibility and rank for these qualifications, right? So even though a 5 level or a person who's, comparable and has that experience does something, it has to be signed off by a 7 level. Not everything, but most things do, right? And so if I have multiple jobs that I'm working and supervising, I don't really have the time to, I guess, be there to watch you do something correctly. So do I trust by signing this off, or do I go and verify and make sure everything was done correctly as best as possible visually, right? And then sign it off. And a lot of times in my profession, especially the young individuals that came in that get to a 7 level position in the rank, and they trust their guys, and then they end up getting burnt because something wasn't done correctly, or that person forgot this, or it was a blatant mistake and stuff like that, and they get hammered for it, right? Then they develop, and I have been through this myself, where we kind of develop this hardening, and it's I trust you, but let me go verify to make sure this is accomplished. And it's and my subordinates say it all the time, how is that really trust though? It's just word salad. You're just flattery. You don't really trust me because you have to go verify. If you trust me, you won't have to verify. And I was like, how I combat it, I was like, we're all human. That's I guess how I combat
that. Protocol. Okay, it's our protocol. I'm not doing this. No, but I love, this is why I've been poking at your military experience, because I think trust has to be thought of so much more intentionally than it does maybe in my everyday life. I mean, it's there, it's always present, but I don't have to think about, does my life depend on this friend I choose or what car or vehicle I'm getting into,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's powerful. And I think you still raise an important point. I don't think what you're saying is wrong or invalid just because I'm going to say like it's strong.
Yeah.
There's a verse in the Bible too that says not to cast our pearls before swine,
Yep.
based on this idea that pigs will just trample anything. Doesn't matter the value of it. They're just going to trample it. And so earlier to your point about like, I'm not going to just tell my story to anybody. I don't think you should. I don't think that every story needs to be made available to everyone in the world. The books I've published, I chose to tell that story. There's a whole bunch of others that I'm still withholding for the right people, the right time. And maybe they never even come out in that way. Or maybe when they come out, it's in a conversation and it's not a book, depending on the audience and the level of protection or privacy or whatever that I might feel. So I think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom to being cautious with where and with who we put out those stories, and not even for a lack of trust, just for stewardship and wisdom, right? We're not just putting our most valuable things out in the world for people to trample. If someone isn't going to be respectful of our story and we can already catch that vibe, then they don't get it. Yeah. And that is perfectly okay. And I think likewise, you'll find this with authors trying to find their publishing path, right? You can Google things. There's so many self-proclaimed gurus out there saying, oh, this is the one way to publish. This is the one way to be a bestseller. This is the, buy my program and you'll have all these things. And, or there's so many free groups that you can join and like feel like you're getting all this great information, but it's usually wrong, conflicting, doesn't consider your unique story or your unique path. And so even in that, I would say use caution, use wisdom. Don't just trust anyone who says, I've written a book, I can help you. Like you've got to do the research. And so I don't take it lightly when people trust me. And when somebody says, I need to go talk with my spouse, I need to review other companies, I'm like, by all means, I don't want anyone high pressured sales into working with me. I want that trust when they sign the agreement. And if they need more time than someone else to do that, I don't care, because I don't want anyone to be there who's not sure they should be there. And that's not everybody, right? You get a lot of the high pressured, this is your one and only chance to tell your life story and publish it. You've got 26 minutes to decide. And anytime I have 26 minutes to decide, my answer is no. Nope, and no. Right. So I just want to, as much as I've kind of teased you and poked at you a little bit, there's such validity to what you're saying about trust and the importance of people being trustworthy with our stories and where we put them and which ones we put out there to them.
Yeah. No, I got you. And it goes to a next question I have for you. Like, does everybody have a story worth telling?
Yes.
Yeah, because I hear that. No, seriously. Like a lot of times people are like, well, everyone has a story worth telling. Yeah. But it's like, I guess, is it that story wasn't received correctly if it doesn't blow up or go viral, or is it just for not that time? Like, I compare stories or books to albums, like, and the reason I say that is because a lot of times the classic albums that we enjoy and love when it comes to music really didn't blow up right away. It was like it just sat on somebody's shelf for like months before someone said, the right person, I guess, kind of said, did y'all hear this? This is dynamic. Like, this is amazing. Like, you should want to hear this. And so I just wonder, does that happen for you, especially with you publishing 22 books and everything like that, where you find people actually starts going back to like your first books, what you wrote back in the day, and they like, and they know you for that, not just for who you are today, but who you were starting off. Yeah.
I mean, there's two things there that stand out. Again, you're so good at asking questions. And then sometimes there's a few all in one question. So it's good. The first question, or the first thing I heard you say was, I heard you ask about, does everyone have a story worth telling? And then I heard you attach like an outcome to the word. So is it worth telling if it's gone viral or hitting a certain level of achievement? And I don't define the worth of a story that way. And that's okay. That's okay. The worth of a story to me is, did it impact somebody?
Yeah.
And you can decide how many somebody's. I'm happy. I'm genuinely happy if it's one. Because the thing with the traditional publishing industry, and this is true with music labels too, right, is they're doing market research, but they're looking for the profit. Where is the largest audience that I can serve? And then they'll neglect every other audience that doesn't hit their profit margin, right? So for me, because I have a high value for the ignored, the silenced, those who feel like they don't belong, those who've never seen themselves represented, I have a high value for them. So if I put out a book and it only serves them, but it never becomes viral, whatever, right? Whatever virality would look like for a book, I don't care. To me, my story was worth telling, one, because I told it for me first. So I think that's why I say everybody has a story worth telling, because all of us have something we need to work through. Yeah. And that journey alone is enough reason. Even if you never published it, but you wrote it and you wrestled through it and you did that for yourself, worth it. From there, and this is what I help people do, right? You can craft it into something that will impact others, help them to see themselves, help them to know they're not alone, help them to be distracted. If this is fiction, like get out of your own crummy world for a minute and join me in this other crummy world, right? Where it's like, you don't have to live yours for a while. Whatever it might be, if there's some value or impact that I can give someone who otherwise gets missed, it's worth it. And I think every single one of us, if there's anything that matters to you in this life, there's a reason it matters to you. Probably because you were impacted by it in some way. You are not the only one on this planet then that matters to. So when you are willing to put that out into the world, you'll begin to attract the people who are like, wow, I thought I was the only one. Why? Because the traditional industry isn't focused on them. Right. And so that's where I love how much independent publishing in music, in writing, in podcasting, like has removed gatekeepers and provided voices and resonance for so many people who used to just get missed. So I do think that everybody has a story worth telling, even if they don't believe me. It doesn't matter. I believe that they do. And I'm not trying to be cliche or trendy. I think from a neurological, scientific healing perspective, we need to tell our stories for our own healing, I'll say. Even if you don't realize you need healing in something, there's a healing work that happens for our own reconnection, even with play and art. And then beyond that, the cherry on top is like, and do I get to create a space for people that's impactful in this hard world? Yes. I don't even care how many people that is.
Wow.
Was there another question? I really honed in on the.
That's basically the cusp of it. And that's how I relate it, because like a lot of people, they say, oh, if you're not going viral, then what are you doing? But I notice a lot, especially with the younger generation, they encapsulate virality with doing something that has never been done. And usually that's really weird, or something that was written that was never written before. And it usually has to be very, like, I guess it has to be trendy, or, it has to be like almost borderline offensive, I guess.
Yeah. You got to really have like a strong stance of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do remember, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I remembered your other question, which was, has it ever happened that like somebody connects with an older book of mine and then it gains attention just because it exists? And absolutely. I think it's very similar to podcasting, right? We call it evergreened, that our work can be evergreened. I did the work once of writing the book. Now it's out there and anyone at any time can read it until even beyond my death. Like it'll be there. It'll outlive me. Podcast episodes, unless you take them down, anyone can go back and listen to your very first episode and connect with you back then and be impacted, even though you're now on whatever number you're on, right? Like way down the line. So I think there is something there that's really wonderful to this kind of work, is that we do it in this hour that we have, or in the case of podcasting, but it gets to keep existing and keep supporting and impacting people. And that's a book. And it's a book, especially when you independently publish it. If you traditionally publish it, publishers will say, it's not really selling anymore. Let's pull it out of print. And then what exists is what exists. That's it. Whereas in the case of me, my books are going to exist, I don't know, and beyond me, I'm not pulling them off. And
Yep.
so they will always have the opportunity to impact people. And what happens, and this is true with podcasting, right, is that people begin to spread the word. Oh my gosh, I read this book. It was so good. Oh, I heard this podcast. It was so good. And they begin to sell themselves or spread the word among each other, which is the goal. I want people I don't know to write to me and say, hey, I came across this. Because I'm like, wow, that's awesome. That means someone else told you. Like now I'm beyond my own circle of influence because people are spreading the word because the value is good. And so, yeah, it happens. And I think in all of our industries where we get to put out work that just stays out there.
Now, question with your writing and everything and just researching you, a lot of stuff comes up, especially like in the beginning, like, who are you? And you was talking about abuse. You was talking about murder in the family. And I have experienced abuse, especially at a young age, with family members as well as murder, because growing up in Miami, Florida, it was not easy, especially in certain neighborhoods. I was in Opelika, City, and you couldn't walk around with a gold chain. Even when I went on home on leave when I was a young airman, one of my best friends, Harlan Dawkins, never forget, we got caught in a drive-by and he didn't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so literally I was home on leave for a month. I was 2 weeks in on leave. That happened. And then less than 2 weeks later, I was shipped off on a plane going to Japan. And that, like, my worldview, everything was kind of messed up because I was holding my best friend as he was passing away, right? So going through that it took me a while to heal, right? When I say heal, it wasn't because I wanted to. I didn't want to do the work. I guess I was kind of like forced into it in a way where I had to come in, they say come into Jesus moment. You know what I'm saying? So I had to deal with it, right? But what made you, going through all that, want to do the work, want to understand what's going on and say, you know what? I'm gonna do the work to heal, but then also make it a testimony for people to talk about, because I know it's not easy. I mean, just saying it's not easy for myself. So
yeah. No, I'm so sorry that you experienced that. And it helps me even understand like enlisting at 17 and trying to get out of there. Right. I imagine I'm putting that on you, but
I was 17 when I enlisted. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So first, I'm just so sorry. And thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
I think I probably have like a selfless answer and a selfish answer.
Okay.
Selflessly and dysfunctionally, I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt them. And if there's something about me that is hurting people, that becomes a huge motivation to change. And when I say dysfunctionally, I mean, because that's been exploited, right? Like my abusive marriage, other people in my life will take advantage of a person who just wants others to be happy and not hurt. And we'll use that to really control and do a lot of things, right? So even though that was like a genuine part of myself, I don't want to hurt people, then that causes me to want to be better. But sometimes it was more for the wrong reasons. Like, I don't want to hurt you, but also I want your approval. I want you to like me. I want you to be happy with me. And so I'm going to do the work to make sure I'm the best version of myself I can be, so that, right? So I guess it still ends up being selfish. Or maybe that was the selfish reason. I think the desire not to hurt people. And then I think that was probably like some of my original reasoning. As I've gotten healthier and I've gotten to experience health in my own mind and body, it's for me. Yeah. It's so much better. It's so much better to know about windows and mirrors and understand that as part of my healing, not everybody is going to like me or see me. And that's just teaching me something about them. The freedom that I have as a result of the work I've done, like to know that I have worth and value, is so much better than when I didn't know. So I think that I tasted enough healing to where I realized, oh, this is really good. And I want more of it. And I never want to go back. So I probably did go from more of that seemingly selfless, but still like, I just don't know who I am. So I need you to like me. I need you to see worth in me. I need you to see value in me, and I don't want to hurt you. Motivation to a place of, man, I like the healthy Marcy so much for me. And the overflow of that is, ideally, I'm still not hurting people and people enjoy being around me, but it's not my reason anymore. It just feels so good. When things were hidden, then you're always spending so much energy like keeping it hidden. I live so authentically and in the light. I'm not afraid of anything coming out. There's nothing I'm hiding. That feels so good. I have so much more energy that I'm not spending. I'm now not spending so much energy trying to like prove myself to anyone. I've just been freed up. So as I process that with you, I think that's kind of where I am now, is that the catalyst for maintaining it is I don't ever want to go back ever to where I was. So whatever work is required of me to maintain regulation and health, like, I'm in.
Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, I like that. No, and that's so real, because it's like when I tell you I had my coming to Jesus moments, it was like I was kind of forced into, like, I was like, I never even wanted to deal with it. And as I started this space and actually started putting myself out there and seeing people like you who I champion, who's willing to tell their story unapologetically and say, this is who I am, this is what I went through, but this doesn't define me like that anymore, and watch and see who I can be and who I am today and who I'm going to be 10 years from now or 5 years from now. And I'm only going to be better. It amazes me to see that, with that as you go through your life. So it is a blessing. It's 100% a blessing. I wonder, like, if you can provide context, like, what should someone do if they want to start writing and they start feeling stuck like this when they're writing a fictional or non-fictional book?
That's great. They can talk to me. I'll help.
Yeah.
That was a great segue. Thanks.
Yeah.
They can. I mean, I do have a free strategy call for people who are interested in working with me. So I do have people who will get on that. I also have now I'm using this as my shameless plugs.
Do it. Go ahead.
Writing and publishing community. Right now it's only $10 a month, and we do group coaching calls, and I create just a community of people who otherwise feel alone to say, like, does anyone else feel stuck? What are you doing to get unstuck, or whatever it might be? So I guess the reason I created those things would be my answer, right? Would be like, one, just start writing. Who cares? That's where you got to let it go. Let it go. You gotta let it go. You gotta just get over yourself and put words down. Now, there's so many. I'm saying that like that's easy. It's not easy. Oh, I also wrote a book called Overcoming Writer's Block. I should have started here. The Writer's Guide to Beating the Blank Page. I took my years and years and years of coaching authors and I put it into that book, because I can't be everywhere at once helping every writer, but I want to be. And so the book now is a way that people can have me and everything I coach and teach right in front of them at their disposal. And so that I love that. I love it. And I get people who reach out to me and say, I read your book and now I'm unstuck. I'm like, yes, that's what I want. However we get there, that's what I want. So that's a tool as well. But basically, we've got to just start writing, and you've got to really chase down the obstacles that are coming up and really challenge them. Is it true that I don't think I have enough time? Is it true that I'm not good enough? Is it true that my story doesn't matter? Is it true? And maybe some of those are like, I don't know. So then find the community of people like I created with the Writer's Block, but there's lots of communities of writers who gather for either critique groups or accountability or support or whatever it might be, so that you're not alone left with your own thoughts that everyone's having. But when we have them all by ourselves, they sound so much more true and they are so much more powerful. But like you said, Marcy, do authors ever feel doubtful? Like seasoned Yes. But that might have surprised people. Like, what? Jane Yolen doesn't feel like an author every day of her life? Like, then, oh, maybe I can do this authoring thing. But unless we're in community to share those stories, we are only left with our own dysfunctional thoughts, right? So community and just doing it. And then one obstacle is like, I can't do it unless I have an hour. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Like, just see what comes out in 5 minutes. And if what comes out is, I don't know what to write, I've just set a timer, I feel like then write that. I talk about like the garden We want to go out into the garden and just harvest all the goodies, but we have to weed the garden, right? We have to like clear the topsoil. And sometimes the first things that come out of our brain are weeds. That's why we have a delete button. We are not going to go put that out in the world, but we have to clear it to get into the flow where the good stuff is. But most people will stop with the weeds and say like, oh, see, I'm a sucky writer. I'm no good at this. Look at all the weeds that just came out. And as a coach, I'm like, yeah, they've got to get out of the way. Keep writing the junk until you get into the flow. And then you'll see it. Then you'll really begin to see like, okay, there's some nutritious soil here. There's a harvest that's going to come. Okay. I'm beating that metaphor down, but yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it and then be around people doing it.
Okay. So my last two questions for you, and I'm just going to give it to you. So what are you working on right now, and how can people connect with you, with this writing process and just everything you're doing? Because right now you are amazing, and I just want everyone to know that. And just plug away.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Well, I just kind of like shamelessly dropped a few things, but so right now I'm working on a children's book series. I published the first one the end of last year. It's called The Survival Squad. And that's a children's picture book, but I've used it with combat vets. I've used it with women in recovery. I use it all over the place. Mostly I've used it with adults, but it's a book where I use 3 animals to represent the 3 main parts of our survival brain. Our brainstem, our amygdala, and our prefrontal cortex. And what I'm doing is I'm giving people language to understand how our brain works without needing to know all the scientific words. I mean, I share them. They're in the fun facts or whatever. But each character in that story represents a part of what our brain does when we face an obstacle. And so the friends will face multiple obstacles. They'll have a fight response, a flight response, a freeze response, a fawn response. And you'll get to see how your brain operates. The reason I teach that is because there's a lot of self-judgment and criticism, like I'm bad, I'm not good enough, I'm. When your brain is like a team of friends, they're doing their best to keep you alive. And if you're here, they've done a good job. You are alive. That's amazing. But when we don't realize that we are the like boss of the team, then they're just doing their best, but sometimes they have wrong information. So when we realize they exist, when we realize our brain is doing this, we can actually take some stewardship of them and like give them better information. And that's part of our healing journey. So I wrote this book to create that experience for people, to have some language and understanding around, oh, this is my team and they're cute. They're a meerkat and they're a tiger and they're an owl. Like they're harmless and they love me. Like, how can I take good care of them? And so that's a book series that I'm working on right now. I'm working on the second book. But I just want to make healing accessible to the everyday person. And so that's what I'm working on. And then if people want to reach me, I am kind of all over, but I'm on Instagram at Marcy Marie and both of my websites. So if you put those in the show notes, those can be there. But at marcypusey.com, you can find me there. I have my TEDx talks linked there. My own books are linked there. And it will also direct you to my press site, Mira Mare Ponte Press.
Oh, wow.
And the link, I know when I named it, I was just thinking about all the meaning behind it and not whether or not anyone could say it. So business lesson number 1, when you start a business, think about the people who are going to have to say the name and spell the URL. So yeah. And like I said, I've got a free strategy call there for people who are like, I think I might want to work with you. Here's kind of what's on my mind. And I offer that conversation to people. But there's a whole spectrum of ways that I try to support. I also have, a private practice therapy option too for people who maybe they're not writing a book, but gosh, can you teach me about these animals and help me like just heal from life? Like I do that as well. So.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Everyone, Marcy has been our guest. She is phenomenal. From her books to her websites, being a TEDx. We didn't even get into that. And we'll get into that probably next time when we have you on. You are for sure a return guest.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for sharing your heart with us. Everything, the things that you have been through. And we touched on a little bit, but I'm not really into digging into people's past. But I do like it when you're able to share stuff like that, because it frees, I believe it frees a lot of people from the pain and trauma they're going through in their lives. So thank you, and I appreciate you, and have a wonderful day. See you guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.